And welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and excited to be on here. This is a Veterans Day special. We are 2 days in front of Veterans Day, but excited to be on here to celebrate Veterans Day and speak to one of my former students, Andrew Forrester, who is a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy, and he will be coming on shortly. So excited to be here, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. Give a shout out to our listeners in Canada on Voice Ed Radio. We always appreciate them tuning in. We're live on Facebook and then going to iTunes. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. So today's show is going to be about the military. It's going to be about Andrew and his journey to the Air Force Academy. And I grew up in Staten Island. Those that know me, I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and I really didn't have a lot of exposure to military or military families. We didn't have anybody in my family directly who was in the military, and it just wasn't. It wasn't a big part of my life. Certainly, I knew we were a free country and protected. And I watched on the news. I remember as a kid watching Forrest Gump, right? The scene in Forrest Gump there, Normandy Beach, right? That was like one of the first movies I remember of violence, and just seeing that. And I was like, oh my God, look at this massacre that happened, But then I moved to Port Jervis or Milford in Pennsylvania, and I'm the principal at Port Jervis High School. And there is a rich tradition of military service there, traditions of families, generations of families serving. And as principal, we coordinate having the different military branches come into the school. And I know there's varying opinions on that, but I really have my respect for the military. My respect for our students who have gone into the military has grown each and every year. And I've really gotten to see the process, right? The recruiting and the relationships they build with the students. And everyone joins for a different reason, right? But a lot of those kids are looking for some structure. They're looking for a community, and they find it in the military, and many go on to be extremely successful. So I want to give a shout out to all of our students in Port Jervis who are currently serving, and certainly a shout out to our community of veterans that have served here on Veterans Day, and really just celebrate them and thank them for their service. Explaining to my kids on what this holiday is and what it means. And there's just so much there. So I do thank those members of our community, and again, active and retired from the military. So we are going to meet Andrew Forrester here. Andrew is a graduate of the class of 2016. He is a cadet in the U.S. Military Academy, and I got to watch Andrew grow up over the years here. And well, let's bring him on here. I talk too much, and let's bring Andrew on to the show. And boom, there he is.
How you doing, Mr. Murata?
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, good to see you. And thanks for coming
having me.
The program. Yeah. Now you don't look like you're in a military background. Before we get going about the Air Force Academy, where exactly are you, Andrew?
Yeah, so I'm at my sponsor family's house. So the Academy does a really cool program where they select cadets and assign them to volunteer families that basically volunteer to take the cadet in so they can sleep over, have home cooked meals. And I got lucky enough where my father knew someone he served with out here. So I'm paired up with their family, and I'm at their house right now.
So you get to go and be with someone that your father served in the military with, and you said, I got to do a podcast. Can I come over and use your internet?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Well, Andrew, I really appreciate you making the time. It's a Saturday night here, and you're taking time away from your friends and your service there. But Andrew, it's been a few years. You graduated in 2016. Tell me about your experience so far at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, so this is my third year at the Academy. So I'm a junior, and this year is actually going very well for me. Whereas my first 2 years, I definitely struggled quite a bit. It was a huge shift going from high school to not only college, but to a service academy. So this year, I'm in a lot of my majors classes, and I kind of figured out how to work out and how to do the military stuff. So this year's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying myself a lot.
What is your major, Andrew?
So I'm majoring in business management.
Okay. Andrew, so many of our students take college courses in Port Jervis.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of them transfer there? Did you get credit for any of them there or no?
Yeah, so I actually had one transfer. I had psychology transfer over for me.
And you one of the last classes with Mr. Birmingham.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of my other classes didn't transfer, but I think that's pretty specific to service academies.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very strict curriculum, and the classes have to be really similar for them to transfer or accept credit for it.
So, Andrew, you are a top-notch kid, now a young man. I can't call you a kid anymore. You're a young man, but you're a top, high-achieving young man. What were some of those struggles when you got out there? Because certainly in Port Jervis, right, you had it all. You just a great, So tell me, what were some of the challenges that you had when you got out there?
Yeah, so honestly, I struggled like a lot with academics. The academic course load at the Air Force Academy is pretty incredible, and it is an amazing education, but it was just a totally different caliber to what I was used to. So adapting to how the academy does academics was really tough. And I also struggled a lot with my physical fitness tests. The tests are pretty tough, and figuring out how to finish all my homework, do my projects, and then have time to work out was not an easy process for me. And I definitely struggled through that.
And give me a specific example, Andrew. I'm in the classrooms at Port Jervis all the time. Give me a specific example. Is it that the teacher is lecturing the whole time and you have to take notes? Was it understanding the concepts? Was it that there were so many kids in the class? What specifically was one thing?
I think it was the focus of STEM. So the Air Force Academy has a very large core curriculum because we all graduate with a Bachelor's of Science. So I have to take classes like Calc 1, Calc 2, Chem 1, Chem 2, Physics 1, Physics 2, Aeronautical Engineering, Astronautical Engineering, and a bunch of these classes that don't particularly pertain to my major. And managing those all at once, because more than likely, most cadets have a math class, a chemistry class, and a physics class all in the same semester.
Wow.
And trying to figure out how to do Calc 2 and chemistry and physics is just very difficult for me.
So how'd you get through it? How did did you pair up with some top-notch kids? Were you calling Miss Casara and Mr. Santos? What'd you do?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like you get extra help, and that's the one thing that will get you through the academy or hard academics. Was I got multiple hours of help from my teacher. The academy is really great with having, I guess at colleges it's called office hours, but at the academy we call it EI, just extra instruction. So I would go in I got multiple hours of extra instruction for those classes. And then if I didn't understand something, I'd go to a classmate of mine, and most people are pretty gracious and helping if you ask for help.
And was that you saying, I'm going for EI, or are they saying, hey, Andrew, you need to get in here? Which one was it?
A little of both.
A little bit of both. Okay.
You get your first test back and you see it and you're like, whoa, I need help. And then the teacher, if it's bad enough, they'll ask you to come in and they'll help you out.
Well, Andrew, how about some things that weren't hard for you? Something that you just kind of were able to roll with? What was something there that came easy to you?
I think time management came pretty easy for me, as far as juggling everything that we have to accomplish in a day. In high school, I felt like I was pretty active. So getting home at 9 o'clock and then doing homework until 10 or 11 was pretty normal in high school. And that just transferred over at the academy. It's just a lot longer of a day, but you have to accomplish the same things within that day. So I think doing that was probably my easiest thing.
So Andrew, walk us through a typical day. Even if it's this year, you don't have to go back to your first go. Walk me through a typical day of when is that exercise, the meals. Are you in a uniform all day, or do you get to kind of wear casuals? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so every cadet has a different schedule, and there are a couple things that keep us all in line as far as like how our days play out. And similar to high school, we have an MT day schedule, which is just like an A-B day schedule. So on those days, I have different classes. So depending on the day of the week, I could start morning formation at 6:30 or 6:45 in the morning. And that's where we all line up in the hallway, or we have a lecture from one of our flight commanders just lecturing us something that they think we need to know or improve on.
And you're standing in the hallway, like you're standing up like that, like at attention?
Yeah.
At 6:30 in the morning?
Yeah, depending on the day. It changes. Different days have different formations. But yeah,
what's a topic? What's a topic they might speak on?
It could be anything. It could be anything from investments to like current events, or things that the squadron needs to improve on, or things that are happening during the week.
Okay. So that's the first thing in the morning. Then what? So
then after formation, and at formation, you're in uniform. And so the whole day you're in uniform until your last military duty, which could be a class, or if you're an athlete, you would obviously change into athletic clothes for that. But after formation, we have breakfast, which is optional. So it's just a cafeteria. You can go in and get food if you want. And that closes at 8. But classes start at 7:30, depending on what periods you have. And classes will run from 7:30 to 11:30. And then at 11:30, depending on the day, we will have new meal formation, which is where we all form up as a squadron and we all march to lunch, and all 4,000 of us eat together, which is really impressive.
And all in one seating?
All in one.
Wow.
Yep. And it's pretty cool the way they do it. So we march in as squadrons, but our squadrons are broken up into flights and elements. And you will sit at the same table with the same people throughout a semester. So you get to, know people in your squadron and get to hang out with them at lunchtime.
Okay. And once you're sitting down and eating, it's like a regular meal.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. You don't have to sit in silence or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
And then once you're done with lunch, depending if it's an M or T day, M days, we have a time slotted out where we could have briefings or leadership training for an hour. If it's a T day, that block is filled with the class. And then classes end at 3:30. And then if you're an athlete, you would go down to sports. If you have intramurals, you go down to those. And then there are also airmanship programs that we have. So depending on the airmanship program you're in, you could be taking up class periods to fill that fulfillment, or you could be going down after school.
And Andrew, you talked about the fitness. Is that something that is built into the day, that you have to do a certain amount of exercise, or do you have to just on your own make your own routine, or is it a requirement?
A little bit of both. So the way we're graded or assessed at the academy is we have 3 different criteria. We have our GPA, our MPA, and PEA. Our GPA is for academics, MPA is our military performance, and our PEA is athletics. So throughout our class periods, you can have a gym class. So you could be in a soccer class, softball, climbing, anything like that. And there's certain requirements that we have to fulfill. Like we all have to take boxing. We all have to take swimming or water survival. And so that plays into your PEA. But we also have Air Force testing. So we have 2 different physical fitness tests we have to take in a semester. The first one we have to take is what we call the AFT, which is a 1.5 mile run. And then we have a second test, which is called the PFT, which is pull-ups, long jump, push-ups, sit-ups, and a 600-meter sprint.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like CrossFit all wrapped into one there. Wow. Okay. And this is something in your first and second year that you had some challenges with, but you've kind of got it down. I mean, you look like you're in good shape now. You look great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. Andrew, with all the academics and stuff, like, what are you going to go into? You're going to be you're a business management major, but is flying, like, are you going to be a pilot? Where are you going to go with your military service?
Yeah, so that's the hope. I hope I'll be a pilot. So a lot of the time, our majors don't correlate with our job. There are career fields that you do need a degree in. So if you're going to be a civil engineer, you have to have a civil engineering degree. But if you want to be a pilot, as of right now, there's no requirement for a degree, like a specific degree. And I won't find out whether I'll be a pilot or not until this time next year.
Okay. And when you say a pilot, are you talking about a fighter pilot? Are you going to be flying kind of cargo or personnel? Like, what is that? Do you get to choose that?
To a degree. So you can put in preferences for things. But when I say become a pilot, when you graduate the academy, you will get a pilot slot. So you're allotted a slot to attend pilot training. And everyone trains in this same initial aircraft. And then once you get to pilot training, that's when you start deviating into different aircraft and starting to track different missions and airframes.
Very cool. Well, wherever you go, I hope you be safe and be careful and fly straight.
Well, thank you.
Andrew, the name of the show is called Education, Leadership, and Beyond. And you always, when I knew you in high school, always carried yourself a little bit different than every other kid. You always just were very upbeat and positive. You never looked like you didn't sleep half the night. You're always with it. Since being there at the Air Force Academy, what have you learned about leadership? What are some of the biggest points that you feel that you've added to your life in terms of leadership?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned in the limited time that I've been in leadership, which is basically this year and last year, your freshman year, you're kind of the mission. So you're being trained in most of the military stuff. And then sophomore year, you're assigned one person to be in control of, or not in control of, to lead. And then when you're a sophomore or a junior and senior, that's when you really start picking up responsibilities. And I think the one thing that I've really taken away is being passionate and really caring about your people. If you truly care about your people, they will not only accomplish their mission, but they'll help you with whatever you need help with. And it's just a really good cycle to be in.
That's great. That's a great point, Andrew, because it is all about relationships, right? If you think about your teachers that you've liked and your family members that have shown care, that's great to hear, Andrew. What else? Tell me some more things that you've learned about leadership. Some of the, I don't want to use the wrong word. Are they instructors? Are they commanders? Are they captains? What the people that are instructing you? What are some of the things that you've taken from them?
Yeah, so we get to, I think one of the big advantages of going to an academy is we get to interact with so many different leaders. So a lot of the people at the academy are in the military, and most of them are pretty high ranking. So we get, from like day one, we get to interact with some fairly high ranking military members, and getting to be under them and see how they lead and comparing it to other people and how they lead, it really gets you to hone in what you like and like what you think your style is going to be. So much so that we actually have classes. We have a class called Lead 300, which is where we do readings and analyze different things of leadership and different techniques and different models that we can use. And then we get to try it. We get to, use it in our day-to-day life and implement those if we so choose.
Andrew, there's a lot of movies about, the military and more so, the general military, but is the yelling there like that you see in the movies? Are they yelling in your face? Is that happening?
So that's definitely a part of going to the academy. And most of it is during training. So that is not day to day. You're not walking to class and people are screaming at you. But that is part of going through basic training. Basic training is meant to be mentally and physically tough, and having someone in your face making things challenging for you really makes you develop your mental capacity and what you're able to handle. And then throughout freshman year, some of that trails in because we are still training freshmen, but it's not a day-to-day occurrence. It's definitely used in a training environment.
One of the things I learned in my role, Andrew, as principal, right? Like some kids just don't like to be yelled at, right? They crumple up. That it just doesn't work for them. What have you seen now in your third year and people that you went to school with? What have you seen in those young men or women that are no longer there, that didn't make it, right? Were they getting themselves into trouble? Was it the academics? Was it too much rigor? Was it too much structure? What were the things that led to some of the students that aren't there anymore?
I think the biggest reason people will leave the academy is they weren't initially intrinsically motivated. They came for other reasons, whether it be, family, they thought it was the right thing to do, or they came for sports, and then they just figured out it wasn't actually what they wanted to do. Because if you want to be at the academy or a service academy in general, people will help you stay. If you really are struggling with something, people will help you and you can get through anything. But if you really just don't want to be there, it's really tough to get through it, because there are times that you do struggle through some things and you really have to want it to make it through that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andrew. I visited West Point when I was in high school, and I stayed over. I got the nomination, all that. And I remember the cadet showing me about making the bed and then shining the shoes. And then he had to memorize the front page of the New York Times, because it was the morning check was coming. And he said, I have to memorize this. And I was like, you had to do all this before 6:30? Like, that's a lot, And I kind of realized in that moment, it wasn't for me. So certainly respect you and what you're doing there, and the fact that you're doing so well there. So we're really proud of you.
Well, thank you.
When did you start to realize, I want to go to the Air Force Academy? And, when was it seventh grade? Was it middle school? When did you start to realize this is something that I want to do?
So I remember realizing that I wanted to be a pilot first. And that was actually at a air show that I went to. I was walking around looking at the planes. I was like, oh, this is something I could do for the rest of my life. And then from there, it wasn't until freshman year of high school that I think it was my dad brought up. He's like, oh, you should look at the Air Force Academy. You have a pretty good chance of becoming a pilot out of there. And then you get to serve and you're guaranteed a job. And it sounded really cool. And I actually got to go on I think it was a week. I went on a little program that sent me to the academy. And I did the same thing, just got to explore, see what it was really like. And that was when I started really considering the academy. And honestly, it wasn't till I got the acceptance letter that I thought that I could go to the academy. It was such a surprise when we got it. Just knowing the caliber of people that normally go to the academy, I just didn't think I compared. And it was a really nice surprise to be awarded, my nomination and get accepted.
And Andrew, when you were a sophomore and you were going through geometry or algebra 2, and when you're going through US history, were you saying, man, I got to get a 95 on this test because I want to make sure I have good grades? Because were you thinking about that through all the levels of high school, and when you were tired on a Wednesday night when it was 5 degrees at home and you knew you had to study because you had an exam first period, like, was that on your mind as a goal?
It actually was. And that was one of my motivating factors to stay out of trouble and to do well in school, was that I knew that the people, or what the academy is looking for, requires that of me. So that was exactly it. I would, spend the extra time studying because I thought that maybe getting an A instead of a B+ would maybe be that bump to getting me in.
And Andrew, you knew, again, in those early years of high school, you knew that there was 1 out of 10, 1 out of 12, the ratio of kids getting in. Because I looked up the stats today. I told you earlier, 1,000 kids get out of, 13, 14,000. Were you thinking like, oh my God, this is going to be impossible? Or were you saying I could do it? Like,
no, it was more of the impossible. I honestly, we had confidence that I would be able to go to a prep school to prepare me to go to the academy. And then we were pretty confident that if I went to a prep school, that I would be at least competitive to go to the academy. But it was always in the back of our minds that maybe I'd get picked up, but it was definitely not totally expected.
So Andrew, I know parents think this, right? Did we do a good enough job? Did we give our kids enough, as parents? And we think the same as teachers, right? Like, I'm looking at you, how well you're doing there, and so proud of you. And at Port Jervis, we're saying, are we doing enough for our kids? Did we prepare them enough? So you're not going to offend anybody, but like, what was one area that you felt prepared by, specifically high school, and then one area where like, hey, we need more of this type of class or this type of preparation?
Yeah, I think in general, I felt pretty prepared to go on to the academy and to move on from high school. I felt there was not much else I could have learned as far as like life lesson wise. I thought I was in a pretty good place coming to the academy. And then as far as, so something that I thought I was really prepared for was actually communication, whether it be like writing essays, public speaking. I remember in high school, it seemed like I wrote an essay in every class, but it definitely paid off. It definitely helped me at the academy, knowing grammar, being able to creatively think. And I felt like Port Jervis did a great job at that.
I'll make sure I let the English department know that.
And then I don't think it was anything. So the one thing I did struggle with was STEM classes. And I don't think there was much that could have helped that, except maybe me taking more math classes in high school. But the one thing I did think upon was I had to take physics and chemistry my first year, whereas I was exposed to physics and chemistry, I think it's junior and sophomore year. So pretty early on in my high school career. So by the time I took it again, it was day one. I had to learn it all over again.
Wow. Andrew, when I gave you the questions, you said, I didn't know what that was, but one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite movies is The Natural, Roy Hobbs, right? Did you ever see the movie The Natural?
No, but I watched the scene that you told me about.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did, yeah.
Look at you. Okay. Well, that's one of my favorite movies, right? Roy Hobbs never got a shot. His life went off track. And then, when he did make it, right, they asked him, Ray, what is it? There's your alarm clock there.
Yeah.
They said, Ray, what is it that he said, when I walk down the street, I want people to say, there goes Roy Hobbs, the best there ever was. He wanted to be the best, right? I'm watching so many of your classmates do great things, and some other kids that you went to school with are home, right? They're home. It didn't work out, and they went a different course. What is it that you hope for that your community thinks of you or says of you or sees of you and or your family? What is it that you hope for that people will think of you?
So I think of, like, as of right now, I don't really know what I want people to think of me, other than that, like, I'm just a good person. But I think when I retire, or if something happens to me, like, the one thing I hope people recognize is within my military career is that I truly led with passion and I did care about everybody. Because, like I said earlier about, I think what I think is most important in leadership, I think that's it. I think if you're passionate about leading and if you truly care about people, they'll trust you and you can do some pretty amazing things with that.
That's great, Andrew. That's really great. And, a lot of our community is going to see this and, very proud of you that you are doing it, but, caring of other people and passionate. Next kid that gets in trouble at school on Monday, it's going to be a little nicer, a little easier. Let them know I care. Andrew, we're up in the rapid fire portion of the show. So these are going to be quick questions where you give me a quick answer and the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay.
All right. Best thing about being in the Air Force Academy?
The camaraderie, just all my friends.
Worst thing about being in the Air Force Academy?
The lack of sleep.
What time do you get to bed?
So I'm a special case where I normally go to bed between like 12:30 or 1:30.
Okay.
So it's pretty late, but that's my own decisions. I procrastinate, and that's where it puts me. So.
And then you're up at 6?
Yep, 6:30.
Oof. Most beautiful place you've traveled?
So Aspen, Colorado, the Maroon Bells. It's like one of the most picturesque places I've ever been.
Wow. Best thing about Colorado?
The skiing.
The coolest, like, electronic toy or weapon or the coolest thing that you've seen, like, oh my God, this is really cool in the Air Force?
So last summer, so one of our summer programs is we get to spend some time at an Air Force base and learn about what they do and some of the jobs they have. And I actually got to ride in the backseat of an F-16, which was an awesome experience. There's definitely a lot of vomit involved, but it was really cool.
You threw up?
Oh, yeah.
And when you say F-16, for us non-military people, that's the fighter jet?
Yeah, that's like the classic fighter jet.
Wow. That's cool. You know how to fly one of those things?
No.
Not yet.
No.
When you come in one of those, maybe you take me one. Something that motivates you is?
I think my family and friends. They're the reason I do a lot of things, and they keep me going.
Well, and that goes to the next question. You might have just answered it. Someone who inspires you is?
I think the more I look at it, I think it's my dad. I think the more I look back, I really am kind of following in his footsteps. So I think he's the one who really pushes me to where I am today.
He's also the one that gave me your cell phone number to get you on the program.
He is, yeah.
Andrew, again, we're doing this show for you and for your family, but really for the veterans that are out there to look at the great youth that we have that decided to serve our country. What is something that you would like to say to veterans that may be watching this, here on the eve of Veterans Day?
Yeah, and I think it's just like everyone. I just want to say thank you, because if it wasn't for them and their dedication to serving our nation and protecting our freedom, I wouldn't have the ability to do it now, because they are the ones who founded this nation and protected it. And because of them, I have the ability to do so. So thank you.
And I second that, Andrew. The thing you miss most about Port Jervis?
The pizza. Colorado pizza is not the same.
Which was your favorite? Which one?
I think PJP was pretty much had the game.
There you go. Okay. I can't announce my favorite. I don't want to get in trouble, so I spread them all around. Okay. Your favorite teacher at Port Jervis was?
I think that's an unfair question, but
you can name a few. All right, I'll give you an out.
So I will say that if it wasn't for my guidance counselor, Miss Balo, and Mrs. Shields, there's no way I'd be at the academy right now. So I just wanted to thank them because they played a huge role in getting me to the academy.
Very cool. And I know that's always, I have a lot of students that take a pass at that because they love their teachers and they don't want to offend them. But certainly a nice shout out to guidance, right? There was a lot of paperwork and hurdles and that kind of stuff. So
exactly.
Best thing about being a redhead, Andrew?
It's definitely the jokes. We can always make a joke about having red hair or having to put sunscreen on, whether someone says it or I do. It's always funny.
Worst thing about being a redhead?
The sunburn. I can be out at formation for 10 minutes and I'll walk back with a sunburn.
Do they let you put sunscreen on? Is that allowed provisions there?
Yeah, of course it is. It's just me not doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, me.
Andrew, you're doing something great with your life. You're a young man. You're in the Air Force. Besides being in the Air Force Academy and besides your family, what is something that you are most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of earning my basic parachutist badge, which to get it, you have to do 5 solo free fall jumps out of an airplane, which was really, really kind of tough for me to get through. I found out really quickly that I am not meant to jump out of airplanes. So being able to actually earn the badge and completing the course was a huge hurdle, and I'm extremely proud to now wear that.
What was that like the first time you had to jump?
So the first time was the best because you don't know what to expect. So there's so many things going through your mind, and the program is amazing because your first jump ever out of an airplane is by yourself. So they train us on everything that could go wrong, anything that could happen, the solutions to all those problems. So you feel very confident when you're in the airplane. You're like, I can do this. I've done it a million times. I can handle it. And then when you're actually standing in the door, you're like, whoa, this is going to happen. And then you let go and you're like, whoa, there's nothing under me. Wow. And then the next thing you know, you're just sitting under your parachute. Because, you do have to pull your ripcord, but you're sitting under there and it's pretty awesome.
What's that like when you're, just floating with the parachute?
That was my favorite part, sitting under the parachute, because the parachutes are extremely maneuverable. So you can do some spins and you can, turn and steer it. But it just gives you a whole new view. Because you're sitting up a couple 1,000 feet, you're looking down on everything, all the planes that are at the airfield look super small. You can see little people running around, which is super cool. And I don't know, you just really feel alive.
Cool. Andrew, you did great here on the program, really well-spoken, and you look great, you sounded great, so I really appreciate it. Andrew, if people wanted to get in touch with you on social media, is that something you're allowed? You have social medias and connections there? Can you allowed to put those out?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
So it's just Andrew Forrester on Facebook and Andrew Forrester 16 on Instagram. And if you're looking at the academy or you have questions about it, please reach out, because the more you know about the academy when you're trying to get in, the more successful I think you'll be in the application process.
And I know we have a couple of students that we might have to set you up with. And Miss Shields just sent a thank you that you gave her a shout out. She was watching. Yeah, nice. So, Andrew, normally I fill the end of the show with a quote here, and I asked you about it, but why don't you go ahead and give me those Air Force quotes or slogans?
Yeah, so it's aim high, fly, fight, win.
Very cool. And we also spoke off air about, was there a book that impacted you or really sat with you, and you more talked about the book that you're reading right now. So why don't you touch a little on that?
Yeah, so the book I'm currently reading is On the Fire Line. And the reason I'm reading is because this winter, or this summer, I had the privilege of going down to Philmont Scout Ranch to be an Academy Ranger, which is like a program the Academy does. And Philmont was struck with a couple of wildfires, and that was something we were dealing with the whole summer. Like, we weren't personally on the line, but it affected the summer pretty badly. So I don't know, the book just connected with me, and it talks about what wildland firefighters go through and how they handle what they do.
And right now there's some really bad fires in California there once again. So kudos to you for getting educated on that. And but you did great, Andrew. So I thank you for coming on. And this was Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. Andrew gave you his social media. If I can help you out in any way, at Andrew Murad 21. We appreciate you tuning in. Andrew, please be safe. And certainly when you come back to the East Coast, get in touch with us, okay?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. We are going to tune out. If you're enjoying the show, everyone, please give a recommendation or a thumbs up on that. And again, a special shout out to all of our veterans serving our country here on Veterans Day. We are grateful to you, and certainly the sacrifice that you have given to us as Americans. We are thankful. So here was Andrew Forrester, one of the best and brightest coming to you. So Andrew, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. My best to you and your family. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.
All right. See you, everybody.